Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here to do this all again tonight. It's always a good experience. I was just talking to Ryan, and we're going to call this Park+Cherry Home Edition. Yeah, I think we're good. So tonight we're making Chili Lime Salmon Quesadillas. I personally love Mexican food. Actually, since Corona, Corona, I've eaten a ton. So here we have a few things. The bases: sour cream, tahini, red pepper, chili flakes, cumin, salt, honey. That's going to be the base of our sauce for our salmon. And we can go ahead and jump in. You can see the stove here. You won't get to see me walk over, but I have some skillets heating up for the sauteing of some things we're going to chop up. So let's get going. Just for the base of it, start off with some peppers and onions. Hope everybody's been doing well. We miss you all. Can't wait to get things back going, but we have things like this that get to keep us all together. So hey, we're here. We're gonna enjoy the time together. For me, I like color, so I try to add a ton of color to every element of cooking. When I'm cooking, which is kind of true to the artist that I am. So we have bell peppers. I'm going to throw in a little parsley. Just a little bit of that. That's actually cilantro, sorry. Don't try this at home. Take your time. So that's pretty much the base of what that is. This is going to be our mix. I'm going to throw a little olive oil in here. It's going to be our quick saute pan. Put a little oil in there. Pretty much already hot. So we're going to bring this over. Turn it up a bit. And while this is cooking down, we're going to work on our sauce for the salmon. Our salmon is here, already cut and filleted. Beautiful. We have a pre-made mixture also, so this is kind of what it looks like after. You're going to take that in, and this is going to be based in kind of like your chili sauce. So we got our bowl and our whisk here. Here we go with our sauce. Just a little bit of honey. A little salt. A little cumin. A little red pepper. Things happen. We got a little tahini. I'm gonna take our lime, cut that, just give that a good squeeze. If you were here, you can hear the sizzling from the stove with the peppers and the onions. We got all that mixed in. Just to kind of give you a look. Honey is real thick, so this is real liquidy now. And throw a little cilantro on there for a little color. Take our salmon. Just pour a bit of that glaze over it. That's what that looks like. For me, since I'm a kind of seasoned guy, I add a little more season. But that's what you have. Real good, sweet, moist. Once it goes in the oven, we'll flip it over, and then you have this here. So we're gonna go over. The peppers and onions are going there sizzling. I'll put a little oil in to start our quesadilla. And just a bit of this cilantro over. That got a little too hot, so we'll let that cool down. We'll go ahead and cut down some green onions. In my quesadilla, I like a little bit of everything. Avocado, so we have the guacamole, we have the cheese, we have our salsa. I like a little extra tomato, so why not? My kid actually hates tomatoes. I don't understand it, but hey. I also like my quesadilla fully loaded, really stuffed. One of my favorite recent trucks is the Taco Nagas, which is really great tacos. We chop up a little parsley just for a little more color. We got all that cooled down over here. So we go in. This is our quesadilla. Put it right on top. I like to take the cheese base, let that cheese get a little melted. I like to put cheese on both sides so it sticks from both ways. Don't let that go. I'm gonna bring this over so you can see it. That's what those peppers look like. That looks good, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and throw those bad boys on. So I'm throwing in parsley and green onions. Going in with the salmon. Let that get a little warm. I almost forgot the tomatoes. So we are fully loaded and just about ready to plate. Tip board clean, sanitize. So again, I like my quesadilla fully loaded. There you have it. Take that out of there. Put that bad boy on the board. Yeah. This is my favorite part, the presentation. If you see that, you can see it's fully loaded. Let me get close. Look at that. That looks good. Look at that color. And I'm a consistency guy, so again, you can see that color. That all looks really great. And just for the record, you have the char. So put that there. I'm gonna go on, pull a side of guacamole there. Throw in a little bit of salsa on top. That's starting to look real good. It smells good. A little sour cream. The 2 limes on the side just for the squeeze. I'll take just a little bit of this cilantro. That smells real good. We're gonna throw that right on top. And that's our salmon quesadilla. That looks really good, really flavorful. Let's get that close. It's a good close up. Good and charred all the way around. Again, we like it fully loaded. You got your guac, you got your sour cream, you got your salsa, you got your peppers and your onions in there with your cheese. All looks really flavorful, really good. With that being said, it's been a good night. I've had a great time doing this with y'all. At some point, the world's gonna come back to normal, and we would love to see you all at Park+Cherry. But until then, hey, we miss you guys. We hope you guys miss us. Thanks for watching. Now let's sit back and watch Kevin's tour of American Impressionism.
Hello everyone, I'm Kevin Sharp. I'm the director of the Dixon Gallery and Gardens, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our next exhibition, America's Impressionism, Echoes of a Revolution. Before we look at a few of my favorite paintings in the show, I just want to say a couple of words of thanks to you, our upper level members. Your support meant everything in 2020. It was very important that you stay with us, and you did, and you made a tremendous amount of difference, and we're very, very grateful for that. I can also say this, we really miss you here. I'm hoping that these presentations translate onto the small screen in front of you, but I cannot wait until we can be back in a room together talking about paintings, having more of a dialogue than me talking to a cell phone. So anyway, we're grateful for your support. We're excited about this exhibition. We're looking forward to the moment in 2021 when we can all be standing in front of the same painting again at the same time. And won't that be an exciting moment? So anyway, when the Dixon is visiting the subject of Impressionism, it's like we are on our home turf. It's like we have home field advantage. We are very comfortable in this arena, whether we're looking at the French originators of Impressionism or the other artists that come along later and turn it into something really powerful of their own. And in this instance, we're looking at American painters. We're looking at artists from the United States who discover the Impressionist aesthetic, some of them very, very early in the process, and find in it the expressive tools to really make art that will resonate in this country for years and years and years. As much as French Impressionism is an incredibly important style in Paris and in France and places like Giverny, which you'll hear a lot about today, the style is perhaps even more durable in the United States. We embrace Impressionism probably within a decade of its formalization in Paris in the 1870s, and we will hang on to it much longer than the French actually do. They've moved on to other isms, Cubism, Fauvism, other styles entirely, and we're still wringing some kind of aesthetic value from French Impressionism. Now, the artist who probably gets to the Impressionist aesthetic first is a woman named Mary Cassatt. She is an intimate within the Impressionist circle by 1877. We know that there are at least a couple of Americans who are seeing the exhibitions that are organized in Paris even earlier than that. We know that, for instance, Henry James, the great novelist, started his career as a magazine writer and critic, reviewed the 1876 Impressionist exhibition. We know that George Lucas, a Baltimore part-time art dealer, more of an advisor, saw the 1876 exhibition as well. And by 1879, Mary Cassatt is actually participating in a French Impressionist exhibition. And so that's very early when you consider that the first self-organized French Impressionist exhibition took place in 1874. So within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, Americans are beginning to become steeped in this aesthetic. Then, by the mid-80s, Americans are beginning to find their way to Claude Monet, to the artist who is probably, as much as anyone, the perfect example, the personification of French Impressionism. He's living in the village of Giverny along the River Seine, outside of Paris, and American painters are making their way to him in substantial numbers, and one of the first to find him is an artist named Willard Metcalf. And I'm standing before a work by Willard Metcalf right now. It's a painting of an eel fisherman working in a small stream called the River Epte, which is a tributary of the River Seine. And he's paying no attention to Metcalf, but we know this is the River Epte in part because Metcalf tells us it is, but it's exactly like the stream looks, with the deep, dense foliage on either side, and the pollarded trees that line the River Epte. Pollarded is just cutting back poplar trees really hard, and so what you're seeing are the tiny shoots that sprout out after it's been cut back hard. So this painting is made in 1888. By this time, Willard Metcalf has already been to Giverny twice before. He's there in 1885, he returns in 1886, and by this time in 1888, he's beginning to bring other Americans with him. Okay, so Willard Metcalf, this artist who will become one of the most important American Impressionist painters, finds his way to Giverny in 1885 and finds his way to the home of Claude Monet. Now, this is probably quite intentional. And this charming small painting is in a private collection, and so it's very rarely seen in public. And what we're seeing is Monet's garden. Now, it's not the elaborate gardens where Monet's planted his nymphaeas, his water lilies, and it's not where he's diverted the River Epte to create these incredible water gardens. Monet would not allow Metcalf in those spaces, and probably wisely so. But he did let Metcalf paint in the kitchen garden. And this is a charming painting of that very space. You can see the wall surrounding the garden and the plants that produce both food for the table and beautiful peonies for Monet's vases. Now, the following year, Metcalf spends much of the year in Giverny and paints this beautiful, beautiful canvas overlooking a poppy field and looking down on a group of houses that may actually be part of Monet's compound. This was painted in 1886, and it's just beautiful. It is yet another work from a private collection that we're very fortunate to have here at the Dixon. And if you follow me, keep your eye on those houses, and then probably a decade later or more, you see Lila Cabot Perry, a very, very important artist in the whole conversation about America's Impressionism, an artist who will have a deep investment in the village of Giverny, painting what could actually be the very same site. So these Americans are finding their way by word of mouth to one another about places to stay, places to paint, things to do in the region, and what they're really doing is building an American version of the Impressionist aesthetic. It's brilliant. Now, there's a very good reason why the Dixon gets excited when there's an opportunity to do an exhibition about Impressionism, and it's because it's a real strength of our holdings here at the Dixon. And we're just going to take a little walk, and I'm going to show you a few pictures very quickly. Now, this one doesn't actually belong to us. It's a work by Frederick Frieseke, but it's in a Memphis private collection from someone who has a very close relationship with the Dixon. This is our Charles Courtney Curran painting, our H.O. Tanner painting, of course, our brilliant John Singer Sargent painting of Venice, Ramon Subercaso seated in a gondola. That was, of course, the centerpiece of our Eugenia Errázuriz exhibition of about 5 years ago or so. And then we also have Elizabeth Norse, also from the Dixon's permanent collection. It was part of the Horseman gift in 2017. And as if that isn't enough, Theodore Butler, Monet's son-in-law, eventually son-in-law, painting grain stacks, a quintessentially Monet subject in Giverny itself. So, there's 6 paintings right there that are part of this exhibition, and gives you a sense of why we are like swallows returning to Capistrano, always finding our way back to Impressionism. Come on, I want to show you one of my favorite paintings in the exhibition. Look at this beautiful picture. This is a painting by Childe Hassam, and it's just exquisite. It's a painting of his wife Maud, working with her geraniums in a windowsill, and I think it's just an exquisite painting. And to my mind, it's very, very much an Impressionist picture. But guess what? I mean, he hasn't even really been introduced to Impressionism quite yet. This was painted just before he goes to France for the first time. But look at how exquisitely he pays attention to light. And light is one of the signature ingredients, one of the essential ingredients in any Impressionist picture. Look at this, for instance. Look at the way the light travels down this window jamb, and look at the interesting patterns that the shadows make. And then I'd also look at the way he catches the light on her shoulder and on the edge of her dress as it's pouring through this window, and even the way it's backlit through the curtains, and even in the highlights of her hair. It's just simply an exquisite Impressionist painting. Plus, it's captured this arrested moment, this captured moment where he sees someone, his wife, someone he loves, and records just this completely ordinary moment and fills it with meaning and emotion and, most of all, beauty. All right, I've been studying Impressionism for a really long time. I mean, at least 30 years and maybe more, certainly 30 years as a scholar. And I would have said before we started this project that there is very little that I don't know about the subject of Impressionism. And what a good exhibition will do is challenge the assumptions that you have. And this exhibition did a tremendous job of challenging my assumptions. And 2 of my favorite paintings in this exhibition are 2 paintings by artists I had never heard of before we started planning this show. They're both California Impressionists, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant. They both happen to be born in 1886, which is the year of the last French Impressionist exhibition in Paris. And so they are very much 2nd generation, maybe even 3rd generation, but it takes time to get all the way from Paris to Monterey in California. But once it gets there, these painters know what they're doing, and they know the principles of Impressionism as if it's been bred into them in some way. Look at this marvelous canvas by Armand Hansen. Now, like I said, I don't take any pride in not knowing who Armand Hansen was, I should have known, because look at this painting. It's a marvelous Impressionist picture. I mean, the dash of the brushwork. I love the, the horse, the blue wagon. The wagon wheels have, half a dozen colors in it all by themselves. But it's mostly the play of light, the shadow across the foreground, the band of light in the middle distance, and then the light coming through the trees and bouncing off the house. It's just beautifully, beautifully painted, and I love the bravura brushwork. This is not a finicky Impressionist painting. This is an Impressionist painting with a lot of air in its lungs. Good California air, I would say. And it's just, like I said, just beautifully, beautifully painted. And then you step down here and see another California painter. This is Charlton Fortune. I had to be told that Charlton Fortune is actually a woman. And she's one of the leaders of the Impressionist movement in California. And she does a very, very kind of un-California thing in a way, just like Armand Hansen did. She's painting something very ordinary, something not spectacular like the California scenery. There's no rugged coastline, there's no redwoods, there's none of that stuff. It's a little chicken pen. It's her house, and it's got the very same beautiful qualities. I love the whites in this painting, the whites of the chicken, the whites on her apron, the white on the fence, the way it moves up the trees. I mean, it's like her use of white really unifies the whole composition in many respects. And again, it's this dash, this boldness. I'm not going to fuss over this. I'm going to lay it down, and laying it down rapidly, I'm going to show something of my expressive self. And she does it very, very beautifully. The Hansen was painted in 1915. This work was painted in 1918. So we're now talking about a good 40 years after the first Impressionist exhibition. And look, these works still have all the power, all the expressive value, all the meaning that Impressionism was founded to achieve. It's a really terrific, terrific thing. Now, let's turn around, and I'll show you just a bit of what California painting generally looks like. Here we are at Rio Lobo with again, Child Hassam, and on the end, Guy Rose, and another fascinating woman painter who I didn't know, a California painter named Mary Brady. Good stuff in this hallway. I could stay in this hallway for a really long time. All right, now I'm standing in front of a painting by Edward Redfield, who is an artist that we tend to associate with Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and the School of Impressionism, the colony of Impressionists who thrived in that particular area. But right now he's on holiday. He's in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, and what a great summer day it is. This is a painting called Gardens of the Girls, and I'm showing it to you because to illustrate that idea of just how durable Impressionism is in the United States. This painting was produced in 1930, between 1928 and 1930. So now we're more than 50 years since the founding of the aesthetic, and artists are still seeing value in Impressionism. And not only value, they're bringing something incredibly beautiful to the table. So thank you for being on this tour. Please stick with us. There's going to be a little Q&A session with our own Chantel Drake once this part is completed. But I just want to say one more time, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your support of the Dixon, and please be safe, stay well.
Okay, hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the third virtual director's tour. I see Kevin. Kevin, are you here?
I'm here.
You're here. Hello.
And I already know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
Best virtual director's tour ever.
It was pretty good. It was a pretty good director's tour.
You know, The interesting thing is I happen to know that you made it from a montage of clips of me for like, the last 15 years.
I meant to tell you we were adding a special something in there, but you loved it, right?
And you photoshopped the hair in, right? From some of that, well done. Well done.
Well, can you believe we've done 3 of these already?
No.
It's insane.
It kind of is. Let's hope there's not a 4th.
No.
Oh, there might be. I mean, there might be, but definitely not a 5th.
Maybe not a 5th. You're right. Hey, Erin, how is it going? Good. Okay, so I'm Chantel Drake. Sorry, I haven't even introduced myself. And I will be leading you through the Q&A portion of the event as Kevin continues the discussion of America's Impressionism. Most of you have joined us for this before, but just as a reminder, to submit questions to Kevin tonight, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And I'm going to get us started with a few questions, but submit yours at any time. We'll be asking questions as long as you keep putting them in the Q&A. So submit them anytime. And to reiterate what Kevin mentioned in his tour, thank you for being such a committed Dixon member. We really appreciate your support. And we must thank Chef Phillip for taking us through the demo at the top of the event.
Yeah, it's great.
It looked so good.
He forgot to send one of those quesadillas over here.
He probably did forget to do that ahead of time. You're right. But do you love quesadillas?
Oh, I love quesadillas. Do you love quesadillas?
I love quesadillas. Do you love salmon?
I love salmon. I'm only kind of lukewarm on salmon, or was, until I started eating Chef Phillip's salmon.
Oh, okay.
The first thing I ever had of Phillip's was a salmon bowl, and it was just delicious. You remember that?
Delicious. Okay. Well, so a salmon quesadilla is in y'all's future then. This recipe is going to be made available for everyone, and you all can make it at home, but it looked really good, and we have to thank Chef Phillip for being a part of our event tonight. So
yep.
And clap for him. Okay, so I mentioned during his demo to change your view to speaker view, so Phillip could be large on the screen. You can switch it to gallery view now if you like, but either way, we're going to get started. All right, so Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and ask questions. I see some things in the chat, but I don't see anything in the Q&A yet. So I'm going to go ahead and ask one. Child Hassam, who hadn't been exposed to Impressionism, painted an Impressionist painting. How much of what is considered Impressionism is just innovative use of light? And how much of it is more than that, the principles of Impressionism?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question, Chantel. And, sometimes things get into the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. And that may have been the case with Hassam. Now, we know, for instance, Hassam is a Boston guy originally, and we know there was an Impressionist, a French Impressionist exhibition in Boston the same year that he paints that lovely painting of his wife. And so even though he hasn't made his first trip to Paris yet, and he'll make a number of them, and some of them were early on or fairly prolonged, he may have already had a glimpse of Impressionism, but he's definitely not been steeped in it yet. And some of it could be just shared interests, as the way Monet is interested in the play of light on water and trees, and Hassam has those same kind of interests. And it's not always, when we're talking about influence, artistic influence, it's not always a direct route, and it's not always cause and effect. You know, it can be a little bit cause and effect, and it can be a slightly direct route, and then it could be a left turn and then a right turn, and then, you know, suddenly you find yourself in a place where, you know, you're the definitive American impressionist, as Hassan I would say, becomes. But, you know, early on in his, I mean, 10 years after he paints that painting, so by 1893, he's telling critics that Impressionism is the most misused term in all of art history. Not art history as much as art criticism. And so, you know, he is chafing a little bit at the idea of being an impressionist, because he knows that it would be something he got from somewhere else rather than his own invention. So, you know, it's a lot of different things.
Interesting.
A lot of different things, but that's what makes it interesting.
Yes. Okay. We have a question from the audience. Did the artists pay for their own trips to France, or did galleries or patrons sponsor their investigative travels?
Galleries, not so much. Mostly they save. I would say the vast majority of them either have a bit of family money or save up. I would say the vast majority of them save up. You know, working, work straight jobs or work summer jobs or whatever. They're really that sophisticated level of patronage, I mean, just doesn't really exist in the United States at that time. I mean, among the first American painters to find his way to Paris during the Impressionist moment is an artist named Alden Weir. And, you know, he comes from a family of artists. His father was the drawing master at West Point. And so his travels in Paris were definitely financed by his family, but realize he goes there to study at the École des Beaux-Arts, the leading French art academy, and which is exactly where his father would have wanted him to study, not picking up the vagaries of French Impressionism, which he actually does. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Another kind of follow-up question from the first question: what did Child Hassan do for a day job?
He did some illustration, but Hassan finds some success as an artist early on. I mean, I don't know. He may have driven a hansom cab or something. I have no idea. But whatever, if he did, all that stuff ended pretty quickly.
Okay. You and I have talked about this, but I don't know if everyone on the event tonight has heard this. So women get a lot of love in this exhibition.
Oh, definitely.
Is this because they are just now being discovered, or just now being recognized, or are they just now being included under the umbrella of Impressionism and not just women artists?
Checkbox number 3.
Okay.
It's I think some of us heard William Rudolph, one of the co-curators of the exhibition and one of the authors of the catalog, talk about just how important women were to bringing the Impressionist aesthetic to the state of Texas, for instance. And a woman named Emma Cherry organizes an exhibition of 250 objects in Houston that's only up for 4 days. And all of those 250 works were Impressionist paintings of some kind or another. And that's really very much true of California Impressionism as well. It's women who are making the difference. It's women who are oftentimes the patron. They're oftentimes the founders of museums, and so it is it was grievous oversight that they are written out of so many early histories of American Impressionism. You know, I mean, the Impressionist aesthetic. I mean, if you go back to the French Impressionists, you know, I mean, they were open-minded enough to include women in their shows. There were, you know, Mary Cassatt, of course, Berthe Morisot, and Marie Bracquemond all participate in Impressionist exhibitions. Morisot is considered, you know, a just an outstanding painter by her peers. And the fact that they not only, you know, Mary Cassatt would have had 2 strikes against her as a woman and an American woman at that, and she's invited in as well and considered a real talent. And so something of that inclusiveness, you know, definitely finds its way to Impressionism. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the history of Impressionism.
Right.
That turns into, you know, a big old dumb boys club.
Yeah. Well, and it's really, you know, it's kind of on trend right now, even though it's not a trend. It's more than that, but to reevaluate a lot of what's been written and include a lot more voices and perspectives that weren't included before. So hand clap and big ups to Amanda and all of you for including more women in this exhibition, because it's important.
Oh, it is important, and they're good.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You know, it made no sense. And I'm not saying that every previous history of American Impressionism included or excluded women, but you know, they were kind of selective in you know, in their choices. I mean, you know, Mary Cassatt's always there,
right?
And Lila Cabot Perry is usually there because she lived in Giverny for a good period of time. But you know, but they're definitely written as supporting characters, not the stars they really are. And there are some standing works in the show.
Yeah, especially if you haven't even heard of one of them that's in the show before. Yeah. I mean, that's telling. Okay, so we have another question. Did American Impressionists create their own version of Impressionism, or did they copy or at least play on French Impressionism?
Well, I mean, I think what happens. Yeah, I think what happens is I mean, they're definitely, I mean, Impressionism was such a departure from traditional academic painting, or even from Barbizon painting. I mean, it was so, you know, just visually and physically different than you know, anything that had happened before it, and so. And some of those qualities, you know, the very vigorous brushwork, the choice of subjects, you know, the focus on landscape, and you know, the painting of modern life, all of that stuff is very much an Impressionist invention. So I mean, copying, I mean, is less the word than just learning. And you know, this is the work that is being talked about when American painters are young, whether it's you know, loved or hated. You know, it's the work that's attracting all the discussion. So it's natural that they would gravitate to it. And what this exhibition posits, by looking so diligently and thoroughly at landscape paintings, and by extension, considering the influence of place, is the way that wherever an artist worked also has an influence on the way the paintings look. And you know, and I mean, there's lots of examples I could cite, but you know, the California Impressionist paintings of the Monterey coast are a perfect example. You know, there's a painting of a cattle drive in Texas, you know, and you know, it's you know, if you ask me to name Impressionist subjects for, you know, like half a day, just rattle them off, you know, I don't think I would, even after a half a day, I wouldn't get to Texas cattle drive.
So you know why the cattle drive is so exciting to me, because I don't know if we've talked about this and we're getting really off subject, and I'm sorry, everyone, but Giant with Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor is like one of my favorite movies.
Are you
And
kidding?
so that painting reminds me a little bit of what would have been on Jordy's wall in the ranch. So I really like that cattle drive painting.
Plus, there's nothing you like better than a big steak.
That's not true. But the people don't need to know all of that. Okay, so we have another question that just came in. Aside from European Impressionism, what aesthetic influenced American Impressionists the most?
Well, you know, I mean, most of them were trained at academies, you know, wherever they were from, you know, and so you know, the Art Students League, the National Academy of Design in New York are incredibly important. You know, the art schools in Cincinnati, you know, tended to spawn a lot of Impressionist painters like Chase and Dwachman and others. The Art Institute of Chicago, you know, had a school and still does. And, you know, that had a huge influence. And, you know, and the interesting thing, or I think the thing that I find interesting is that many of the artists we think of as quintessential American Impressionists go to Europe, but they don't go there to find Impressionism. They go there to study something else, to study in Léon Bonnat's studio, for instance, or the Académie Julian, or if you were really good at the École des Beaux-Arts that we mentioned earlier, and they gravitated in colonies other than Giverny first. You know, they wind up in Brittany at Pont-Aven. There's a colony of American painters that worked there, and then in the village of Grez, where Robert Bono paints, and then Chase, you know, William Merritt Chase goes to Munich and studies this sort of dark manner painting, and he's really, really good at it, and it's a kind of academic painting, and you know, he winds up spending time with Whistler. And, you know, Whistler, as an American who achieves great success in Europe, is hugely influential. And so his particular brand of aestheticism, which is, you know, kind of an art for art's sake, where it's not that he's so far from Impressionism, but his work is definitely trades in a kind of painting that eliminates all evidence of the painting, which is very academic in some ways. And so you're not seeing broken brush work in Whistler's work. And Chase absorbs that like crazy. And he does that for a good half dozen years before he finds his way to Impressionism. So, I mean, it's really like Chef Phillip's quesadilla, you know, I mean, it's stuffed full of many different flavors and many different ingredients.
Well done, Kevin, bringing the quesadilla into the
bringing it back home to the quesadilla. You got it.
So how did everybody end up in Giverny then? Like, how did they, like, what happened?
Well, it's you know, of course it's Monet, you know, and what happens is, you know, I mean, this is part of the reason why Willard Metcalf is so prescient in some ways in finding his way to Giverny in 1885. Because in 1885, you know, there really hadn't been an Impressionist exhibition in the United States, apart from this one show in Boston that, you know, only people from Boston probably saw. And so it's only in 1886 that Paul Durand-Ruel organizes an exhibition of 300 Impressionist paintings and brings it to New York. And they start to, by that time, Mary Cassatt has already begun to campaign for Impressionism among, you know, her peers in the United States. You know, her great friend Louisine Havemeyer has, you know, when she's 16 years old, buys a work by Degas, you know, in the 1870s. And by in the mid-1880s, Mary Cassatt is really strongly urging her brother, Alexander Cassatt, who is going to become the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad, an incredibly successful man, to buy the works of Claude Monet. And so by the time you get to, 1887, 1888, Monet's gone from being as poor as any artist in the world to being on his way to, he's on his way to being incredibly rich. And a lot of that wealth is going to come from American buyers. And so Monet just gets into the common vernacular in the late 80s, and Americans migrate like crazy to get close to him, migrate to Giverny to get close to him.
Got it. Okay, so this is last call for questions, everyone. Submit your questions if you have any. I'm going to ask one more, Kevin, and this is a question submitted by a staff member. You said you always feel fairly confident in your understanding of Impressionism, but that good exhibitions will often challenge that confidence. Mm-hmm. Armin Hansen and Charlton Fortune are the two that expanded your awareness in this show. Can you think of some more moments in this show or others where that's happened?
Oh, just, it's happened dozens of times in my life. And going back decades, I've always thought I knew everything. I was born this way. And so, the first time I can really remember it happening was the first time I went to Europe. I was in London, and I went to see a David Hockney show, and it was absolutely sublime. And up until that point, I hated David Hockney. I thought he was facile. I thought he couldn't draw, but then you're standing in front of these big, beautiful paintings, and they're unbelievable. And so it's, I had the same kind of argument with Milton Avery. And then when I was at the Norton Museum, we took a Milton Avery show, and I was just kind of babysitting it, and I was even kind of poo-pooing it a little bit. And then these works get here, and I see how this is why this little screen doesn't get it done. You have to be with the paintings themselves. And with Milton Avery, it's seeing the way he's drawing with a stylist in his wet paint, and there's all this interesting cross-hatching and pattern making in the paint itself. And it just kind of wiped me out. And so, it's really at this stage, that I try to be more, open-minded about things.
As Aaron kind of gives you a side eye. Aaron definitely gave you a side eye there.
I'm the picture of open-mindedness. but it's like when I get to Impressionism, I just, it's like I got game. I've been doing this a long time.
You know it all, right?
Well, apparently not.
Well, and that's nice. Isn't it nice to still be surprised by
I love
something
it.
that you think you know so well?
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite part. I'm very serious. I'll be spending a ton of time in the Wetter Gallery looking at those two paintings because they're just so good.
Yeah. Well, okay. We didn't have any more questions come in. So I guess that's all we have for you tonight. I do have to say, when you visit the Dixon to see the exhibition, you must stop by the store where the America's Impressionism catalog is available for purchase, and it is beautiful. Kevin, do you have your catalog by chance next to you?
Where's yours?
I have it. I don't have it with me. Sorry.
Yeah. Do I have to do everything?
Thank you, Aaron. You made the face that I wanted to make. That is the catalog, and it's beautiful, and it is available for purchase in the store. Lots of good content for everyone to dig deeper into the subject of America's Impressionism. A lot of great images too. So please stop by the store. Also, I have to give a shout out to my very hardworking team of ladies making this event and the virtual tours, and so many other things happen. So a big thank you to all of them for working hard behind the scenes tonight. And that's all, folks. We hope to see you at the Dixon soon. Kevin, do you have something to add?
Well, I'll just say this, it's, come to the Dixon. I mean, it's a very safe experience. We're really never crowded. Wear your mask, social distance. People will social distance from you. You'll have lots of space, and reserve your reserve your time in advance by going to the Dixon website if you want to. It's not totally necessary, but it's another good way of finding out whether, how busy we are in any given moment. But we would love to see you at the Dixon. We're so grateful for your support. We are proud of the way we've managed the Dixon in this challenging time. I mean, I think we've done as well as anybody can when a virus is stalking you. And like I said, we feel very safe while we're at the Dixon, and you will too. And just thank you for your support and for all you do to make the Dixon the special institution that it is, because it really is you.
And when you visit the Dixon, where you'll be able to find Kevin, because he's told you several times what gallery he will be. He'll be kind of camped out in one gallery when you come, so you can get a little one-on-one time with him too, if you're able to stop by. So yes, thank you all again for everything that you do, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to see you soon at the Dixon.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Kevin.
Bye.
Good night, Aaron.
Good night. That was
Good
so
job,
fun.
Chantel.
Thank you. Good job. Bye.